Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're just waiting for people to collect. Welcome all. Thanks for coming. Just let us know where you're zooming in from tonight. Be nice. If you're in London, where in London or elsewhere? Just so you can write it in the chat. So, by way of introduction, I just wanted to say a very warm welcome to the Artist Talk tonight with Polly Braden. This is an in conversation with Holding the Baby collaborator Jahanara Siddika and Museum of the Home curator Sinéad McCarthy. I'm Janice McLaren, Head of Education and Projects at the Photographers Gallery, and I'm also joined by my colleague Louisa Oliet, Curator of Talks and Events. This event is being recorded, so please turn your camera off and your mic off if you don't wish to feature in it. I just wanted to say at the start that Polly's project, Holding the Baby, indeed many of the projects that Polly has developed over the years, is of a collaborative nature after my own heart. I had the pleasure of hearing about the project from its early beginnings, and I'm really excited to see where it has led Polly. And I was really excited about where it would lead Polly and those who she collaborated with. So I've also experienced one of the project outcomes, the exhibition currently showing at the Museum of the Home, which I urge others to see if they haven't already. The Museum of the Home, for those who don't know it, is located in East London on Kingsland Road. Before I introduce Polly, Jana, and Sinead, I'd like to say a little about the format for this evening. We'll begin by inviting Polly to introduce the project, how it started, and her approach. Polly will then be joined in conversation with Jana, where we'll hear a little bit about Jana's own involvement in and perspective on the project. Sinead and Polly will then talk a little bit about the exhibition at the Museum of the Home, its situation there, and the different elements that have come together to create a multi-layered experience for visitors. And finally, we'll open to questions, comments, and input from the rest of you gathered here. Feel free to write things in the chat too. This event will last around an hour, and at the end, I'll launch a very short poll so that we can learn from your feedback. And finally, I just wanted to say that we're approaching this event in the way we do all our public sessions at the Photographers Gallery, which is with the aim of creating trust and mutual respect. So I would ask us all to keep that in mind. And now to introduce the speakers. Polly Braden is a documentary photographer whose work features an ongoing conversation between the people she photographs and the environment in which they find themselves. She works on long-term, self-initiated projects, as well as commissions for international publications. Jahanara Siddika, or Jana, works in market research and is a prospective university student. Her dream since she was in school is to graduate in engineering, and she is a proud single mom to her two beautiful children. Sinéad McCarthy is contemporary curator at Museum of the Home, and prior to her current role, she worked as curator at the Liverpool Biennial, and as associate curator at the Barbeline. So over to you, Polly, to introduce the project. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Janice, and thanks to the Photographers Gallery for having us. So I'm just going to crack straight on and show you, I'm going to share my screen and show you a little bit of this work. So the project I'm going to talk about is called Holding the Baby. It was a 2-year collaboration with the people that I'm about to show you. So it came about really because a few years ago I became a single parent myself, and I wanted to look at some of the prejudices and policies that impact the parent who has stayed. So with the help from charities and law firms and community hubs, we got in touch with single parents, asking them to be part of this project. So over the last 2 years, I worked with Fran Jahanara, who's with us today, Charmaine, Erin, Barbeline, Caroline, Gemma, Carrickay, and their children to represent each of their stories. And we made this in collaboration. Sometimes the parents, especially because of COVID, they would take their own pictures, and I'll talk a bit more about that as we go along. So it came about because in 2019, just soon after I'd become a single parent, I was reading a report by the UN rapporteur on poverty, Philip Alston. He came to the UK to look at the effects of austerity, and his conclusion was that single parents have been hardest hit. There are around 1.8 million single parents in the UK, and it's nearly a quarter of all families are single parent families. And I think that before that, I had thought, I'd read newspapers, I'd seen kind of Daily Mail, but some newspaper articles saying that single parents were scroungers. You hear these kind of discussions. I never agreed with it, but I was like, this is a quarter of all parents. You can't put a quarter of all parents into this category. There are scroungers in every category of life. It's so absurd. And we need to look at these policies. So I started doing loads of research, reading reports from from Gingerbread and loads of other places, and looking at these policies. So, this is always a problem. 1 second, I'm just going to do something. Sorry. So what I wanted to do, so this is Jana, who you're going to hear from in a second, and maybe we'll speak about her in a second when she's on camera with me. There we go. We'll come back to your story, Jana. I'm going to go back to Jana so I'm just moving these things around. So Fran, I met up in the north of England, and she left her partner when she was 36. He went to work, she says. By the time he came back, we'd gone. We took no clothes, nothing. We just walked. I went into a photo booth and took a photo of the three of us. I call it my liberation photo. I never looked back. She says, we lived in a 3-bed house. Penny's in the big room. She needs it to dance in and see her friends. I'm in the box room with 2 dogs and a cat. So I spent time with each family at the beginning, and then I asked the writer Sally Williams to come and meet each of the participants, and she interviewed them. So the text that I'm reading to you are from Sally Williams, and they're in the gallery. So it's a photo-led exhibition with captions to kind of tell bits of the story, but really just fragments. Sally did such a great job of trying to get the essence of each story through very small bits of text. And with each family, we tried to tell a different part of the story of single parents. So Caroline's story is really quite different. She decided to become a single parent using a sperm donor. And it's very sweet when I first met Caroline, because she said, I don't really feel like I should be part of this project because I chose to be a single parent. But of course, she faces the same issues that other single parents face. So in order for her to be there for her daughter every night, she decided to become a foster carer. And so actually her story is very relevant to the story of many women, where you can only really get jobs to work around your children if you're on your own. Sorry, I can't afford. There we go. So when I was photographing Caroline, it was during COVID, and I wanted to go up and meet her again. And I said, I'll come up and I'll set the cameras up in your house, and I'll put the flashes up, but then I'll give you a trigger and you can take the picture yourself. So we don't have to be in the room at the same time. And I'd actually been struggling quite a lot to take something, sometimes some photos are harder to take than others. And I was a bit struggling with Caroline. But when I left her in a room with the camera and the flash on her own, the picture really came alive. So I said to her, the flash will capture what you're doing. And she threw the receipt. So she was doing her receipts as a foster carer, and she threw the receipt, and as the flash went off, it captures this receipt. And so you have this kind of picture that's between documentary and a staged image. And quite a lot of the images are quite those sort of in-between images. And she really loved it. She also decided to stand up because she was sitting in the beginning, and she stood up and filled the middle part of the space. But I really love the fact she took control of the picture, and it's really great. So Charmaine was one of the first people I met. I met her through a law firm. She was taking the government to court over the minimum income floor, and she's a theatre practitioner. So she actually shares the kids equally with her ex-partner, and we decided to photograph both her and her ex-partner, Erin. And because that gives them quite a different dynamic, and it means that the kids are 50-50 with each parent, and it gives Charmaine time to do work where she wouldn't otherwise have time. And we really wanted to feature one man, because it's one in 9. So 95% of single parents are women, 92%. So we felt it was really important to show one man. So this is Charmaine on her way to work. And this is Erin, her ex-partner, with Chloe and their kids. He's very sweet. Erin, he said, I get cast with this halo. Oh, he's brilliant. He hasn't run off with another woman and disappeared out of the children's lives. So Gemma's story is that she has 3 children, and we wanted to work with someone with 3 children because in the UK we have the 2-child policy, so the 2-child limit. So you only get benefits for your first 2 children. So Gemma explains that she and her husband decided to have kids. They went to university together. It was all planned, but when her little one Esme was 6 months old, he left with another woman who has kids. So she says, I didn't plan to be on benefits. We're in this situation because of things beyond my control. Universal credit has a 2-child limit. By not giving Elsie money, all the children get less money. And that just seems incredibly unfair. Of course, she's the one who stayed, and yet she's the one who seems to be being punished. Barbeline, I met in Hackney. So this again was a very staged portrait. Barbeline said to me, that Elijah always comes in, she said, and he's always chatting away to me, telling me about things he's watching on his iPad. And I just have to, I'm trying to do my work and I just have to entertain him. And I was like, great, let's set that picture up. So we set up this picture with all of her designs all around the room. And we said to Elijah, would he come and do this picture and just show us, do it as you normally do with your mum. So he came and he got really animated telling his story to his mum. And I showed Barbeline, she said, that's exactly what it's like. So yeah, so there are lots of the pictures. And then of course, this was a much less staged image. She's on her way to work. And it's just it's kind of staged. I mean, she knows I'm taking it, but it's more on the hoof documentary. And Barbely is very good at describing what it's like to be on benefits and the way that you're perceived. And in a minute, I'll show you a tiny bit of audio if we have time. So to go with the exhibition, I worked with another writer called Claire Louise Bennett, and she asked people to write about one thing, to write about their favorite thing. And so there are 10 panels and 10 people have written things, and she has collected the text. And then, well, I'll show you on the next one. Each person's text is in a different color, and it weaves through these 10 images. So this first one says, when my husband moved out, I bought 3 things: a drill, a dog, a pair of bright green chairs. And then here you've got different bits of text, but so I then made images to represent the words. So in the 5th bit of writing here, somebody says, it's actually a woman called Taya. He's so proud of his little space with his desk, red race car bed, bookshelves, and Power Ranger themed curtain. At the very end, there's all of their names are listed. And this is an image of the exhibition at the Museum of the Home. I hope that you'll get to see it. And I'm just going to show you on the next slide the tables. So we wanted to, as well as telling people stories, we wanted to show actual statistics, because I think often when you tell stories that are quite emotive, people can disregard them, even if you tell as many stories as you possibly can. And I wanted to have some hard facts. So I'm just going to play a little bit of the text. Sorry, one sec. A little bit of the audio here.
My partner and I had been together for 15 years. We'd obviously just had our 3rd baby, and
sorry. Can you hear me if I speak now? I've lost you all.
Yes, yep.
Okay. I hope that the audio will come, but maybe not. So on the statistics table, we've gone into sort of several of the main things about life for single parents. One of the biggest ones, I would say, is that single parents were hardest hit by tax and benefits reforms between 2010 and 2017. This is a continuing line, but the stats that we have are up to 2017. Another major thing is that if you're on the legacy benefits, you have to go out, you have to comply with full job seeking requirements when your child each is 5 now. When Thatcher was in power, it was 16. But if you've moved over to universal credit, it's 3. And another major point is that the child maintenance service is just not fit for purpose. It has a backlog of nearly 400 million. And this is in addition to the 4 billion of unpaid child maintenance under the previous child support agency. The government has now written off 1.9 billion of this debt, and of those not paying child maintenance, 95% are men. Sorry, I don't know what's happening with my screen. So we've made some pop-up stands to go into libraries, and they are in Mildmay Library at the moment and in the Idea Store, and this is the stand from the Museum of the Home, and these are going into community centres up and down the country. I'm actually not going to play that. No, I'm not going to play that now, it's too long. Well, sorry.
Wonderful, thank you, Polly.
I'm just going to leave us on a slide with Jana. Since we're going to chat to Jana, I'm going to put this one on. Can you see that like that? Should I make it full screen?
Yeah, full screen would be great.
Okay.
So perhaps, Jana, we can now hear a little from you.
Yeah, so hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So when I first met Polly for the project, I was living at a women's refuge following my marriage, breaking down after I left home with my kids. And at the beginning, when I read about the project, it kind of appealed to me because the idea of sharing my story, I was like, that's something I could do. And whilst, I'm not working at the moment, so this would benefit me in the sense that, I get to share my story and I get to encourage other people when it comes to not giving up your dreams and just follow your dreams no matter what situation you're in. And then I remember at first telling Polly that I don't want to show my face, so you can just take pictures from the sides, from my back, as long as you can tell it's me, that's fine, but I don't want to show my face. But as time went on, I felt more confident about showing my face, because I felt like if I'm going to tell my story, I want people to know that it's me, like put a face to the story, if that makes sense. And yeah, like showing my face, that gave me more of a confidence. Like I would say before I was a bit shy about showing my face as well. But as time went on, I felt more confident, and then I felt more confident about sharing more about my story instead of just, going over it. And yeah, towards the end of last year, I also got involved in the research side of things. Polly asked me to do some research for her, which was such an amazing experience, because some of the things I wouldn't have never, known about if I didn't do those, research, because you learn so much more. As a single parent, obviously, that life is challenging, but when you look at those facts about how many people are, it is kind of like a privilege being able to do everything by yourself, because because it takes a strong person to do what we are doing as a single parent. But at the same time, you realize it's not easy, and so many other people are going through the same thing. And the fact that the government policies, they affect you as well, because they kind of restrict you in terms of reaching your full potential, because you're always kind of, because of having to work around children, you're always kind of thinking of going for part-time work, and there's not much progression in sense of, you know, part-time work, because yeah, that's just how it works. But yeah, it was amazing, you know, taking the pictures. And at first, obviously, Polly was taking our pictures, but as COVID, you know, restrictions came about, Polly switched to, you know, some self-portraits, which I could take by myself. And that was really fun, because I could, you know, show people that way I wanted to be seen, which was amazing, because everyone has their own point of view. I mean, the pictures Polly took were beautiful. She's brilliant, but you know, the fact that I could have a say in it was great. And also, what else? You know, finally seeing everything come together at the museum. It was an amazing experience, you know, because when you work towards something for a long time and then you see it all come together at the end. Yeah, I'm so grateful to have been a part of this, and to have met all the people, and to have learned there's so much more to being a single parent than I knew at the beginning. Yeah.
I think, Jana, that you and I learned a lot about life for single parents together, actually. Like,
yeah, sure, of course.
reading.
Like, I remember when we were like doing research, I would read something on an article, and I'd be like, Polly, oh my God, I can't believe this. And then Polly would be like, Jana, look at this, I can't believe this, you know, this many single parents, and you know, poverty, and children getting affected. And I was like, yeah, because if you think about it, you know, single parents getting affected by austerity, at the end of the day, it's the children getting affected, you know. And the universal credit sanctions and stuff, it's kind of like a way to punish single parents, but what they don't understand is they're punishing the children as a result, because, you know, getting sanctioned and getting less money ultimately affects the children. So yeah. And also the CMS, like Polly mentioned, there's so much money not being paid yet to the parents, and yeah, they don't use their full potential and full resource to you know, get that money from the paying parent, and they just let it go. Whereas if they used their full resource and the power that they have, then they could have extracted that money. But yeah, it's just sad. Yeah.
Jana, thank you. Thanks, and thanks.
And
Polly.
I just want to say also that Jana, in the time when I first met her, she, you know, was living in the refuge, like she said, and she got into 4 universities in that time, and now she's going to Imperial to study.
Yeah.
And she just found out she's got a full scholarship. So
yeah, that's right.
Force of nature.
I got a full scholarship, 100% scholarship, basically, from Imperial for material science engineering. And thank you. Initially, like, the fact that I got it, that I even got into those universities, it was like a dream come true. But now this is beyond my dream. So yeah, I'm really grateful. And yeah, to everyone, no matter what struggle you're going through, just don't give up. There's always a way around it. And yeah, just have the best.
Fantastic news.
Yeah.
We've had a question through, maybe before we move on to Sinéad,
sure,
about the photographs. Simon's saying they're fabulous.
Thank you.
How many are self-portraits, and how many did you take any of your own portraits, Jana?
Yeah, to be honest, you know, the blue one, the biggest picture on display, that's the one. I think I took that one, right?
The one with this, on the front.
Yeah, and even with the children, like next to the dining table, I took that picture.
Yeah.
And also there were a lot more self-portraits, but obviously we couldn't add all of them to the gallery. But hopefully, I think.
But I think also this image that you're seeing here, so we had taken the same image a few weeks before, and Jana had, we talked about what she wanted to wear and how it was, but she a bra strap was showing, and I hadn't realized, and Jana hadn't realized. And so she said, oh, look, you can't use that image. So we went back and did this. So this is very much a self-portrait.
Yeah, exactly. So basically the picture before that was exactly in the same setup, but in the other picture we were eating, and I was wearing like an off-shoulder top. And my bra strap was showing, and I was like, Polly, we can't use that picture. And she was like, oh, why not? You look amazing. And I was like, it's not about the way I look. And then we had to redo that picture. So yeah, I mean, we did put a lot of time and effort into, getting all the pictures right. And so it tells a story, every picture tells a story. So yeah, it was great.
Thank you so much. Sinead, can we bring you in to talk a little bit more about the exhibition and the meaning of having this exhibition at the Museum of the Home?
Yeah, so I think it was really important for the museum. So we've just reopened after a 3-year refurbishment, and Polly approached the museum roughly about 1.5 to 2 years ago now. And Polly had already started developing the project, and we felt it was perfect for us, because I think what we want to be doing now is about lived experience, about telling stories, and also sharing people's voices. So it's about home not necessarily being a physical space, but somewhere where someone feels at home, or the different societal changes or things that are happening which impact us in our homes. So I think particularly with this project, Polly has, and also in terms of the way that Polly works, so in terms of collaboration and the way that the project has developed, so that it's about working with the collaborators, so Jana and the other people, the other parents within the project, and their voices really singing through in terms of people telling their own stories. And I think Polly does that perfectly through her photography, and also exactly as Jana and Polly are describing in terms of the way even some of the photographs were taken. But Polly, I mean, so shall we talk a little bit more about the exhibition as well, Janet? Yeah. So I guess the way it's been a really collaborative process, and actually one of the most enjoyable kind of experiences as a curator actually that I've had. So Polly, we worked very, very closely together with yourself and Sally, and the project developed. So we were, when we first got together, it was about finding people who would be involved in the project, and literally reaching out and doing call outs to single parents who would be interested in being part of this. So we've been on quite a journey. I mean, I guess I feel like it's been a really wonderful experience, and even from that point, and finding partner organisations which the project is now going to tour to. So it's going up to open our gallery in Liverpool, and then it goes to Arnolfini next year, through to our amazing designer Martin, who's been able to create a really amazing, really beautiful sense of bringing out the colour in Polly's photographs through the framing and the text, and reinforcing that sort of vibrancy and joy that these families are making for their children, and that kind of that thread going through everything. I don't know, Polly, if you want to talk a bit more.
Yeah, no, it was very collaborative. I think at the stage so I had met with Sonia, who runs the museum, but then Sinead and I met for the first time, quite a long time ago. But I had already met a few people, Charmaine, I'd already started photographing, and it was really great to suddenly become a team. And I think Martin's been great in the designing of the show, and just bringing in all the elements and having conversations, and then thinking about the space and, okay, what could we do with this space? And the Claire Louise's work downstairs is in these cabinets. It's really nice. I mean, I think we filled the space in quite an interesting way. And then obviously there was so much to pack in with the audio, with all these photographs. You know, there are 8 stories and it's actually quite a small space. So then we really wanted to get the stats in. So how can we do that? And so Martin came up with the idea of the tables. So it was a lots of like, the 3 of us together could really get stuff done. It was brilliant.
Yeah, there was a lot of back and forth and kind of finding ways through. So obviously anywhere from Polly, the sort of compromises that were made in terms of, you know, due to the pandemic and taking photographs and finding new ways. But I think also that unfortunately the space that we were using was slightly smaller than the one that we intended to use. But it was about thinking how we tell those stories the most effective way, and not losing any elements. So I think, Polly, exactly what you're talking about earlier in terms of the juxtaposition of the photographs with those stats that Rob Minto, so we work specifically with a statistician, Rob Minto, and he pulled together stats from, I guess, the last sort of 10 to 20 years on single and, you know, 2-parent families, and anywhere up until actually, so we've got on the smaller table that was shown earlier some of the more recent figures about how COVID has impacted and continues to impact you know, in terms of austerity on single parent families. So I think those elements, that juxtaposition was really important, and how we did that, but also again sort of reinforcing the fact that we wanted the voices of the collaborators to be at the fore. And so Sally did that really effectively, didn't she, with the interviews with Jana and others, and then actually literally having speakers that were built inside the tables to literally hear their voices, and that being really important, I think.
That I completely agree, and that was my experience of it. Is the voices kind of filled another space in a sense, and another dimension. I wonder if, Polly, you could forward to the exhibition space, and I just wanted to ask you about the decision to involve visitors really in asking them a question, and could you talk a little bit about that question?
Yes, so we wanted to ask, we really would like to start something, you know, and we're going to have an event on the 11th of July, which we can tell you about a bit more about in a minute. But in the actual exhibition, we've just posed the question, what's the exact question wording, Sinead?
How would you describe a single parent?
Yeah, and then we're going to have an event on the 11th of July where we're going to ask people to describe one thing they'd like to change for single parents. And we're going to make banners, allow people to come and make banners on that day, make it a really family-friendly day. And then we're going to have another event soon after that where we're bringing together people who can hopefully answer those questions, maybe a policymaker and some people from Gingerbread, and we've got another event as well, haven't we, Sinead?
Yeah, so we've got an event where it's literally talking, it's under a banner called Home Truth, which is on the 15th of July, which is on a Thursday evening, and that's bringing in so Katie Razzle, who's panelled other conversations with single parents previously, who's the UK editor of Newsnight. She's going to be chairing that, and it will be with Polly Barbeline, who's one of the other collaborators, and as Polly said, Victoria Benson from Gingerbread, who's the CEO there. So we want to sort of have that conversation and really sort of probe some of the data and the stats that we've explored and found, you know, new things that we didn't even know in terms of the impact of austerity on single parents. And yeah, the banner making day, as Polly said, you know, we're using that as a collective, kind of bringing people together, all different families, all different types of families, but then that being a way in which we can then ask those, you know, answer those questions, do something useful in terms of ask those questions and then bring that panel together. So I guess a kind of form of call and response, because actually we don't even necessarily know all the questions that or you know, things that people want discussed or answered. So I think it's important for us to give that opportunity as well to our audiences.
And I think it's important to say, you know, when you start to research any of these sort of subjects, there are people who have been asking these questions for a long time before us. And there are lots of grassroots organizations. There's Elemental Mama. There's, I mean, a lot of people who have been calling for CMS to be changed, for the 2-child limit to end, for the benefit cap to stop affecting single parents. So we want to bring those people back in.
Thanks so much. And I guess that you've already sort of said what your maybe longer term goals for the project might be. It does feel like something that could be a tool for lobbying, and for thinking about how things can change. And as you say, Polly, this is a kind of collective activity. It's something that needs lots of force, with lots of different viewpoints and positions to bring on board. But one can hope for this, and somehow that's kind of going. It's beyond art, or it's beyond a documentary photography project. It really is a kind of lobbying tool as well. Do you want to say any more about that, or your hopes for that, or any other projects that you've worked on where you feel that there's a kind of impetus there to do more than record, but to actually affect change?
I mean, I think that we made another book called Out of the Shadows. I did it with Sally actually as well, the writer, and it's a book about 10 people who have a learning disability going through the criminal justice system, and it ended up being part of a big conference, a law firm conference with politicians, and we got people in the book who had come not only from prison, but had a learning disability, had come from prison, and then from locked institutions, and ended up giving talks, traveling to London for the first time ever. So what my hope with this is that we have this show now at Museum of the Home, and then obviously we're moving up to Liverpool, so we gather a bit more there. Then by the time we get to the Arnolfini, it can be a growing event, and it keeps growing, it keeps asking questions, it keeps moving to gather more people. Yeah.
And Polly also maybe meant to mention, therefore, that you're going to be doing a publication that then will pull all of that research and together over a longer period of time, which I think is a effective way to do it as well. So it's not just a book in one location; it's a compilement of all of that.
So we'll add to the book when we've done the banner making. We can add banners to the book, which will make it quite. Otherwise, projects get boring as well, and you have to move on to the next thing, of course. So, but yeah, it feels worth keeping energy in it for a while longer.
Do you have an idea? I can imagine you've already got a mailing list for that book, but do you have an idea of what the book might look like? Are there kind of other models in mind, or because pulling all that together sounds almost unwieldy? You're collecting, it's like a snowball, and there's all these beautiful images as well, which are that really draw you in. Jana, the images of you, they're so beautiful and so full of light and love.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so I guess it's, how do you balance that with some really hard facts and really difficult information?
I think our policy always was to what's the thing Sally used to say? So to draw people into to let people tell their story rather than to shout, and just to let people see rather than to preach. So in a way, like the photography has always got to be colourful and beautiful. I mean, this is talking about parents with their children. They love their kids. What could be more joyful than running in the park? And what could be more exhausting than the end of the day when you still have to sing your 5th song every night, which Gemma explains so beautifully. Every night she has to go through the sort of 7 different nursery rhymes to get her kids to sleep, but then she just collapses and she has to start again in the morning, and there's never a break because her ex doesn't help, but he sees them once every sort of 6 or 7 weeks. So it's that using the words with pictures that draw you in, and the occasional picture which shows exhaustion, I think, and then just let the stories do the work.
Yeah, thank you. Antonina has asked in the chat, I'm curious how long you'd say you've spent, Polly, with each family over the course of 2 years, and how many times you met with each of them to photograph.
Well, because of COVID, it's been quite different with different people. So Jahanara, I've spent a lot of time with. Barbeline, I spent a lot of time with. Charmaine, I met ages ago. I first met Charmaine over 2 years ago. 2 years ago. But Fran, I've only ever met once, but I've spoken to her. So Fran is the woman up in swimming with her kids. And I've spoken to Fran so many times, but she didn't want us to come. Her daughter has Turner syndrome, and she used to work in the ambulances, so she's very nervous of COVID. And so I only met her once. But I feel like I know her really well because we've been talking for over a year, and she's very involved. And she's actually going to give a talk up in Shropshire. We're giving a talk up at the Hive at a community space there, and she's giving the talk there.
Thank you. Jenna, do you remember your first meeting with Polly? What was that like?
Yeah, I remember the first time. I believe it was after I left. After I dropped my children to the nursery, and then we met in Costa, I believe. And then, yeah, I was telling her about, about myself, and I remember she was writing it down on her orange notebook. She still has that notebook. Yeah, that's the one.
Page 1.
Yeah. So it was a bit. I was a bit nervous because I met her for the first time. Because before the meeting, I sent her an email and I was like, I would be really interested to take part in this project. And she was like, oh, that's brilliant. And I remember she also told me my email captured her towards me, right? And then
you remember what you wrote, Jenna? It was brilliant, your first email.
Yeah, I was like, I said, no, I can't remember exactly, but I said something like, if I can tell my story and, have it resonate with other single parents, that would be, more than enough for me. So yeah, the first meeting I told her about my uni. At that time, I had already received offers from, I think, 5 different universities. And she was like, oh my God, that is amazing. And, to have her say that, it kind of gave me, I don't know, encouraged me. And I was like, okay, I'm going towards the right direction. And yeah, then we met again and we took pictures on the next meeting. So yeah, and the rest is history.
So that happened quite quickly then.
Yeah.
And the trust, it sounds like the trust between you, you arrived at that quite quickly.
Yeah, I guess from the first meeting, I would say I felt really comfortable, talking to her about our situation and what happened beforehand, how we arrived at the refuge and things like that. And she seemed really understanding about everything. She was like, if you don't want to show your face, that's totally fine. It's completely up to you. And you can also back out from the project at any point if you don't want to go ahead. So
in fact, Anna did back out of the project.
I did. I think I tried to twice, probably. I was like, once it was during the COVID, because we were on the process of moving out of the refuge, and I applied to the local council, and everything was so hectic. And then Polly was like, it's fine, don't worry about it. But then as we moved out of the refuge, I felt more settled, and I was like, you know what, I'll carry on. Yeah, and I'm so glad I did. And
I'm glad
Polly
you did too.
Yeah, Polly also helped me with my house move, and she's been amazing. She's been such an amazing support. So I'm really grateful to her.
I just have to, I don't know if you can understand, but Jana was in a refuge going to a place called what was it called? Light Pro Project to use
the community center. Yeah,
she was going to there to use the computers to try and get into university with 2 tiny kids. I mean, they were 1 and 3 at the time, right?
Yeah, 1 and 3. Yeah. So
she was managing. So there were bed bugs in the refuge, and we were going into COVID. I mean, it couldn't really have been a tougher situation to be in. Yeah, and it wasn't her home country, so she has no family to help.
Yeah, my brother, he kind of lives in Birmingham, so I don't have any immediate family near me. So yeah, it was difficult, but a part of me is grateful for what I went through, because I wouldn't have realized my strength if I didn't go through that. Yeah.
But I also want to say, Jana, that there's an extreme generosity in taking part in the project for the reasons that you have. I think you've got a fan club in the chat as well.
Really?
Some lovely comments coming through, but
Oh,
I
that's
think
so sweet. Thanks, guys.
I
Yeah.
think not only have you, you've got some very beautiful portraits from it, but also you're contributing to something larger, and I think there's something to be said for that. And that trust that was built has obviously come through in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
And we had an article in The Guardian, and Jana was featured very large in it, and we've had so many comments from that, of parents saying, wow, that gives me so much strength to feel like I'm not alone. There's a positive thing about single parents in the paper. It feels so important. So
yeah.
I'm curious, how did that feel to be featured in the newspaper as well?
The first time I saw it, it was through Polly's post, to be honest, on Instagram, and I was like, oh my god, this is crazy. And I've had like my friends tell me, oh my god, you're doing so amazing, how come you're in the newspaper? Because some of them it was like, it's a part of a project I've been working on. And I mean, a lot of people have messaged me, and some of my friends, they have also bought the newspaper. And to see that, it feels like I've come so far from where I've started from. To be honest, it feels surreal. It feels like, is this real? Is this happening? So yeah, it's an amazing feeling.
That's really great. That's so great. And you're making me smile. Sinead, can I ask, so there's this question being asked of visitors. Is that board filling up now in the museum? Are people writing a lot about what comes to mind when they think of a single parent?
Yeah, it is, and we're documenting that, and that's something potentially we can add to the book as well, Polly. But yeah, it's definitely filling up, and I would say predominantly it's positive things. So things like brave, powerful, like a saint, like things that are very complimentary. And yeah, I think it's really important for us to offer that opportunity, but also document that so that we can see whether the project's shifting people's. I mean, ideally it would be good to see a before and after, but I mean, yeah, I think it's an effective question to ask, actually, an important one.
I thought the same. I'd already looked around the exhibition when I started to fill in my note, and it did really make me think differently. I don't know. There's something about the photographs. So I do hope that people get to go and see them in person, because and see the way the exhibition's been set up, which we have a slide of on the screen here. But just the fact that there's a table at children's height and one at grown-up height, which is it's a very thoughtful display or exhibition. So I wanted to congratulate you all on that.
Thank you. Janice, also something to mention in terms of the height of the table. We didn't actually mention it, Polly, in terms of the description, but you can see in that image just beyond where the wall is with Barbeline, and actually also for the pictures behind, which is out of shot of Jana, there are photographs that are particularly of the children at child's height. So that was a deliberate thing of actually, let's make some of the images of the children being depicted at child's height as well. So it was definitely a nod to it being an exhibition for the whole family, and children being able to see themselves within that.
Thanks, Sinead. That's a really good point. Simon, you've asked a really good question about the Open Eye show. It will be different. Do you want to Polly, do you want to talk about that?
So the exhibition at Open Eye is going on their forest stands. I don't know if you've seen them before, so it'll be quite different, actually. It's going on these kind of stands. We need to, I'm not even sure yet, to tell you the truth, but it'll be quite different, but hopefully also as fulfilling and full of interesting information and layers of info. That's always the idea.
And they're outside the gallery, aren't they, Polly? I think they're on, sorry, Janice, I think they're outside on the concourse, so as people pass by they see them, so they don't have to go into the, you know, exhibition space if people know open eye. Maybe you do, I don't.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe there'll be ways that people can feed in through social media or other ways, because I think that it's that capturing of people's views and ideas and responses, I think, to the exhibition that are so important. But I think it will be a very different audience because it is outside, and I think that's a really exciting thing as well. And the Arnolfini, do you have any idea of how that might look, Polly?
So the Arnolfini is actually a bigger space, and so yeah, we're not quite there. It's February next year, so I think that probably everything that's in this exhibition will be there, plus some extra things. One of the things we were originally going to do with the stats was to make a really big wall graphic, so as you walk up the stairs in the Arnolfini on the right. So it might be that they've got, yeah, it'll be bigger, I think. Well, it's a bigger space. It won't be better, bigger, just bigger.
Sounds great. So it's time for a trip to Bristol then in February. Simon, yes, come down to London, definitely. And you're asking, what do you primarily shoot with? And did you have to change your setup at all for the self-portraits?
So I shoot with a big camera. It's a medium format digital camera. I'm just seeing if I can get it for you. It has a leaf back and a Mamiya body and a Schneider lens. There you go, all the info. And lights that we set up. So with Jana, when we were trying to stay out of each other's way because of COVID, I set the lights up and a trigger so she could take it herself. But some other days, it was just my camera and no lights. So it just depends. A whole mix. In fact, what I tried to do with each person was to do a big opening shot, and they were often a bit more of the setup shot. So the one with Barbeline, and I shot it very much as an opener, and it kind of encompasses the whole story. And then there are parts to the story about her going to work, the stuff of Elijah in his room, and then so it's a sort of different, you know. It has the opening shot, and then you can go into the story a bit deeper. And of course, there are loads of other shots that will go in the book that couldn't go on the wall. More details.
Thank you, Polly. I think, Jana, we need to let you get back to your kids, and Polly to yours as well, and maybe the rest of us on to the rest of our evenings. But unless there's any final questions, I just wanted to say a big thank you to the three of you, to Polly, to Jana, to Sinéad, for being with us. Thanks for having us. And to everyone else for joining us. I'm going to send you a quick poll, which just enables you to give us some thoughts about the event in a very easy way, multiple choice way. I don't think the speakers get to vote, get to say anything.
Okay, sure.
Can't talk about your own talk.
I was getting prepared.
Oh, it looks like the poll's closed, but I'm going to relaunch it again. Please do fill it in if you can. And I want to wish you all a very, very wonderful evening. But also, if you can put in the chat the banner, I know we don't have the banner making event online at the Museum of the Home, but anyway, even a link to the Museum of the Home for anyone who might want to come along on the 11th of July. And then there's several other events after that at Museum of the Home. I'm really excited about them, and I hope to get to some of them myself. So thank you all.
Thanks very much. Thanks so much.
Absolute pleasure.
Okay. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening.
Oh, bye, Jana. Thank you.